Nothing feels like tossing your money down a garbage disposal quite like pay-per-click advertising if you don't do it correctly. With some guidance, maybe some of the right people involved, you can avoid that. And that's why this week I have Christian Lovrecich on the podcast. He does a great job of helping you keep your wallet and your garbage disposal very separate. That being said, you're going to want to stay tuned. Christian, thanks for coming on. You focus on pay-per-click advertising. And what I got to ask first is the question that everyone's just dying to know. What is the biggest mistake that you see businesses make right out of the gate?
Not knowing their audience and not doing the research before launching an ad.
Oh, so they're just launching an ad to everyone.
Yes. So what happens to the biggest mistake that I see is that people rely on algorithms. They want to rely on the algorithm to do all the heavy lifting for them. And while the algorithms do so, you still got to know who you're talking to. You still got to craft that message towards your audience. Are you sending an ad to someone who has never heard of your brand? Are you sending that ad who knows your brand, who's visited your website, and that's a warm audience? They already know who you are. What angle are you using? What's your offer? What's the product? How are you speaking to them? Just throwing an ad with a random picture and a random headline, it's not going to get you the results that you're expecting. And I see a lot of people doing that. That's why I specialize with brands, that are already, at the 8-figure level and going beyond that, because they already figured it out. And let's face it, when we're all starting, and I've been there when I had my own, it's you don't know what you're doing, and you're trying to figure out who your customer is, and you're just throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And a lot of people waste a lot of money doing that. And I did at the beginning over a decade ago when I started. And that's how I learned. I spent a lot of money that I shouldn't have spent, but it worked out in the end. So if I can save you that money, just listen to me, do your research, know who your audience is before you throw that first ad, before you put money behind it.
It's interesting you say that. So it is, how niche down should people be? Is a wide swath effective, or is it like knowing the exact person that they are talking to? Like if someone's advertising to me, should they be like, hey, look, I want a 46-year-old guy that likes motorcycles? Or can they be broader than that?
It depends. It depends what your goal is, right? For example, in e-commerce, if you're selling a certain product, right? Let's say you're selling a motorcycle, it could be, that customer could be a doctor, that customer could be a lawyer, that guy could be a welder, that could be a guy who just wants a motorcycle as a hobby. So I could send an ad that says, hey, buy this motorcycle, with a generic copy and a generic messaging behind it. It'll probably work. But I know if instead of one ad, I create 4 or 5 that speak directly to that person. Tired of being in the long nights at the office, doing all the paperwork and litigation, getting out of court? Why don't you let free and ride that bike into the sunset? Now I'm speaking directly to you. One of the best examples that a colleague gave me one time is we're talking about our knees. I did a lot of damage to my knees growing up, so it still hurt. And he told me, he's like, somebody told me that long copy doesn't work. I'm sure some of you have seen it when you land on a page and the copy just goes on forever. You just scroll and scroll and scroll. And we call those long sales letters. And yeah, you can sit here and tell me, I will never read all of that. But guess what? If it's 1 a.m. in the morning and you woke up and you're in pain and your knees throbbing and you're bored and you can't go back to sleep and you open your phone and that page comes up and that hook gets you right at the beginning, you're going to read every single paragraph and you're probably going to click that buy button at the end. And I've done it, so I know it works.
not only am I a client, only am I the designer, I'm also a client. Yeah,
exactly.
Makes sense. And I can agree with the knee pain. My running joke is I have spent 46 years treating my body like a rental car. And
absolutely,
I've paid the price for it. So with that, the one I was going to ask one tip, but I think the one that I just uncovered is that don't necessarily think you're going to like do it all in one ad. Do a couple of smaller ones instead of one big one. to really
Right.
target people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always tell people, if you're starting out, do little by little first and figure out who your audience is. And you're probably going to launch a generic ad. But, I always tell people, don't hire outside agencies or experts or any of that until you figure out yourself and you know who your audience is and kind of have an idea of what works or not or doesn't work. I'm not telling you to go out there and learn Facebook inside out or Google ads inside out, but spend $100. Just flip the levers yourself and see what happens. And then you'll have an idea of what works, what doesn't. And then when you hire somebody, you already have a foundational knowledge of how it works. And then you can pass on the torch when it's the right time to somebody who knows what they're doing.
That makes sense.
That's another one that's really big.
It's funny because we talked a little bit before I hit the record button about making sure that you're educated going into it. If you're an educated, whether it's buying a car, buying marketing, if you're a little bit more educated going into that transaction, it's going to be better for both you as the buyer and the marketing firm and whoever else is involved.
100%. Absolutely.
That perfectly makes sense to me. You had something as I was diving through. You talked about marketing is a vital function, and this is a quote. That's why I'm reading this here. A vital function interlinked with all aspects of a business. And when I saw that, I absolutely loved it. I mean, I totally agree with that. Where do you see that a lot of businesses, especially anything from a small to mid-sized business, where do you see they missed the boat on this? Is this a communication thing? Is this just hey, marketing does one thing and everyone else is doing something else? Where's that disconnect? How does that get disconnected?
There's a few things, and these are mistakes that I made myself in the beginning, way back 20 years ago when I was starting a business. Is one thing a lot of people like myself suffer from what we call shiny object syndrome. That you think the next thing that pops up, the newest platform or the newest hack is going to save you or is going to take you 10x to the next level. And at the end of the day, what works is the foundation of marketing and sales. And without sales, you're nothing. Sales first, everything second. So unless you're out knocking on doors on a daily basis, or you have an army of salespeople that are doing cold calling all day and knocking on doors and doing the selling for you, or you're sitting there yourself doing the sales, guess what? Without marketing, you're not going to get sales. So then the second one that goes behind that, it's attribution, right? Just because you put an ad out there or a commercial, let's say like a radio or a spot on a podcast, you might not see, the results on the same day, but it's brand, it's brand recall. You run it for 7 days, people are going to remember your brand. So it's about setting the budgets from the beginning and say, if you're a small business, even if it's $5 a day, that's a budget. That's marketing. We have Facebook, we have Google, we have TikTok. I mean, people will see it, especially a local business. I'll give you a perfect example. In Fort Lauderdale, I remember a pizza shop. This dude opened a pizza shop, young guy. And there's like 1 million pizza shops in Fort Lauderdale. If you've been to Fort Lauderdale, you can throw a stone and you hit a pizza shop. Right? It's insane. And this guy, that's what he did. He just started shooting an ad with a picture of the pizza, nothing special, nothing fancy. And he just started running it $5 a day in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And guess what? After a couple of weeks after he opened the doors, that place was packed 24/7. Like talking to him, when I went in there, because I finally went to check it out because I never saw people doing that, And he's like, yeah, it's insane. Like, yeah, he's like, I just throw $5 a day. I mean, this is like, I don't know, 2017 or something like that. It's been a while. But, $5 a day. And he's still there, man, packed all the time because he never turned it off. He just let it run and set it and forget it. $5 a day. I'm sure he does like $10 or $20 a day now, but that's how he started. Just random. People think they have to get fancy. You don't. As long as the message is there and, put a picture of it. For local business, you'll get people through the door. I mean, now that we have ChatGPT, are you kidding me? Claude, ChatGPT, all this stuff. You can literally go in ChatGPT or Claude and just type in, act as a direct response copywriter. I need you to write a headline for X, or I need you to write a meta ad for me in this format, hook, story, offer. And then it's going to ask you, it's like, what do you want? What's the offer? Blah, 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 blah. And it'll give you the hook, the story, they offer, and then you ask it for a headline, 25 characters or less. That way it fits in the headline of Facebook.
And done. And
it's so much easier.
And throw $5 a day at it. And
for a local business.
Sure,
If you're going to go into e-commerce and all that stuff, I mean, you're going to need at least a few $100s a day.
I was about to say,
to gather some basic data.
It moves the the number's the same, just the decimal point is in a different spot.
Exactly. The difference between a new business and a business that passed the 1 million mark is that they went through hell and back to figure out the 1 million. And now all the systems are in place, and it's just a matter of scaling.
Sure.
And that's when you got to hire all these employees and forecasting and all this inventory. And that's when it gets kind of tricky. But once you get past that point again and you hit that 10, 20 million a year, now you figure out the systems and processes. Now it's like, okay, let's grow like crazy. And that's when it gets hectic.
It makes perfect sense.
But you figure it out at that point.
You've mentioned too that you attend conferences. You like to read. What's one or two with those conferences? To me, I always see stuff that's coming up. I always see I know AI is the big trend. We do a ton of stuff with it. There's so many things around it. What's a big trend that might be in paid media specific that you see that's coming up that people should be keeping their eye on?
There's not so much in paid media, to be honest with you.
Okay.
As far as, at the end of the day, Meta, TikTok, Google, Amazon ads, it's all an auction where you bid and you ask for that seller for that objective that you're shooting for. So that has not changed. It's changed. The algorithm has changed behind the scenes.
Sure.
They're working on their AI and learning on first party data, which was blocked by iOS 14 when Apple released iOS 14. I don't know if, years ago, it was a big privacy, and they blocked all this data from flowing through, even though Apple has access to it, but they don't want to share it. And no one else can see it, but that's a whole different so they've been working really hard on containing first party data. And the way they do that, like Facebook Shops or TikTok Shop or Amazon, all that data is inside. So now you can't block it. No one can block it. They have all the information again. So they've been working really hard with AI to predict the auction.
Okay.
Who's most likely to purchase this product, gathering all that data, basically starting all over again.
Sure.
Gathering all that data and relearn a whole new system algorithm for the AI to build on and advance on it. So that's been a whole process that's been going on for years now since then, and it keeps getting better and better. But at the end of the day, paid media, it's still the same. There's more little knobs here and there. You'll have like AI options for copy and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the strategy is the same. It's your offer. Your offer has to match your audience. If your offer doesn't match your audience and you don't have a hero product, guess what? No results. And the way the targeting is, it's so good at targeting nowadays that it goes back to what I was speaking about earlier, creating different multiple angles with your ads. Speak to that specific lawyer who wants the motorcycle. Speak to the doctor who wants the motorcycle. Speak to the guy who's a welder and he wants the motorcycle. It's a different messaging for each individual. And once you craft your ads to speak directly to those people, platforms like Google, Facebook, they all read the copy that you write. They all watch the video. They know what you're saying on the video. They scan the video to see what's in the video itself. Sure. So it does the targeting for you at that point. So at the end of the day, what's really going to pull the lever is you speaking directly to that audience.
It's funny. So that kind of takes me back. There's two big things that I want to cover. And that is, one is you said, so that's the offer is a big piece of it. It's the audience. And then what was the third big piece that you said is to that?
The offer.
Yep.
What did I say? The offer, speaking directly to that audience demographic.
Yep.
And
there was
hook, story, offer. There's three: hook, story, offer.
Oh, the hook. Okay. So the hook, the story, the offer, the three big pieces to that then.
Correct. The hook is what's going to grab their attention.
Okay.
The story is what's going to bring them in. And then the offer is what's going to create that conversion.
Okay. So then that makes perfect sense then. So it's that draw them in, it's them, tell them why they need this. And then here's what they need. And here's why it's a great deal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Love that. You've mentioned already, numerous platforms, like TikTok, YouTube. Is it figuring out which audience is where? Because I've always personally had a premonition that certain audiences are more prevalent in certain areas, or can you find your audience anywhere? Is your podcast not getting the results you hoped for? Are you feeling stuck and unsure how to grow your audience or make a real impact? We get it. Podcasting can be a challenge, but with the right strategies, it can be an incredibly powerful tool. That's why we're offering our free no-pitch podcast consultation. We'll spend 30 minutes with you identifying areas for improvement on anything from optimizing your audio or video quality to developing a content strategy that resonates with your customers. If you're ready to unleash your podcast's full potential, visit the link in our show notes to schedule your free consultation. Space is limited, so sign up today so we can help you create a podcast that truly shines.
You can find your audience anywhere. You know, people think there's no older people on TikTok. There is. It's just not as big as Meta, right?
Okay.
I mean, I had Facebook in college. I'm old, man. Facebook's my go-to still to this day. But I love TikTok. I'll scroll on TikTok for hours too. You know, I'll probably spend more time on TikTok now than I do on Facebook. But Facebook is the main place where all my friends are and the family pictures and all that stuff. So I'm in my 40s. My parents are there, you know. Older generations are still on Facebook. That's going to be your biggest demographic there. Even though I just saw the earnings report where like the younger generation is moving over as well because of Reels on Instagram. So, you know, it's all one.
Okay.
And all that login against TikTok, you know, from Facebook. But they're everywhere. It's just how much of that audience is in each individual platform. Is the 55 plus audience going to be as big on TikTok as it is on Facebook? No, absolutely not. But for example, I was looking at some data the other day and found out that, you know, our audience, one of the biggest platforms that they're on, which I didn't see this one coming, was YouTube. 55 plus women. It's like, what? YouTube. Out of all, like, I would have never guessed that. I would have never guessed. And when I found that out, I was like, we need to triple down on the ads for YouTube. And find, you know, and scale it because something's not right here. If we're not scaling as hard as we should, the messaging is off somehow, or there's something we need to figure out here. So you'll be surprised what you'll find out, you know, when you run some surveys to your customers and look at the data. You'll find people where it'll shock you. There's a new platform, AppLovin, that it's ad placements on gaming networks. Once again, women 55 and up. Man, they love those games because it's crushing. It's
wow.
Crushing. It's crazy. Yeah.
Huh.
It's crazy. It's like the new hot toy right now for everybody in media that plays with big budgets. It's insane.
Interesting. So, I mean, I guess I would say it really is it's be looking. I mean, once again, it's a sprinkle a little bit here, there, and try different things to really see where your audience is.
It's the one thing that my mentor got in my head from day one is test. I remember asking questions like, did you test it? I'm like, no. He goes, test. Like never assume. Never assume with an ad. Never assume with a product. Don't get emotionally attached to products. I remember, you know, when I launched my first, you know, well, I was going to say brand, but store. It was on print on demand, and I got emotionally attached to certain designs, and I will keep putting money behind it because I'm like, if I like it, everybody else has to like it. Nope. And then you throw that one where you think it's going to be a loser and it just crushes, and it proves you completely wrong. And that's the best. I love that, actually, believe it or not, because it's like, cool. Like I was wrong. See,
sure.
Never assume, and you learn something new.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because then the test piece thing goes to me. It's at that point you're able to show that return on investment on your marketing dollars. Then,
absolutely.
When you see that action, because I always, whenever I talk with people about marketing, marketing's often a tough spend. Because so many people feel like they're throwing their money out into the ether. And what happened? Well, we got a post out of it, but what did that do?
What's hard now, it's attribution. You know, when you're running millions of dollars on Facebook, Google, Amazon, YouTube, TikTok, and then you throw TV on top of it, or radio, or programmatic advertising, that's when it becomes a mess. Because you're getting results and you can track most of it, but it's tough to figure out the attribution. Did that customer click on an ad on Facebook first and then convert it 3 weeks later through TikTok? Or did they watch the ad that we had on TV, 32 days later, and then they finally decided to pull the trigger? But now I'm looking at the data. It's like, well, TV's taking the credit for it, but Facebook's also taking the credit for it because they took the first click over there. So it's putting all that data together. Now we have what's called, MMM models and data analysts that have to look at this stuff on a daily basis and try to help us figure that out, because it's tough. It's hard. It's hard to track where those results are coming from. And you'll never get it 100% right. It's impossible. You'll never get it 100% right. But again, I've seen it before. I remember when I was starting out and when I worked with small businesses back in the day, is that, you will be running Facebook ads, and I will tell him, like, your ads are working. He's like, yeah, but I don't see the exact, cost per acquisition on the board. I was like, well, I'm looking at your sales. I'm looking at our ad spend. This is our MER. This is our, this is where we're at. I'm telling you right now, that dashboard is not accurate. This is before all the tools that we have now, like triple whale and all that stuff where you can see it. This is when it was like you're relying on Facebook Dash, which is never accurate. And I will tell them, I was like, you turn those ads off, everything comes crumbling down. And like, no, we'll get it from where. I'm like, all right, try it. And I will turn off the ads. And sure enough, traffic will go from that and just crash right away the next day. It's you can see it right away now with digital. You can see it right away. So
the question with that, when it comes to ads, does it pay to be more consistent with them, or or is inconsistency like saying, hey, I'm going to do $2,500 this month, then we're going to take a break next month, then I'm going to do $2,500 the following month? Is it better to $1,200?
I'd rather you spend much less and do it consistently than do a big budget for a month, stop for 2 months, and then start back up. There's a few reasons for that. Brand recall. I look at data all day. I see people that don't come back. They'll click on an ad and buy 3 months later without seeing another ad. They just weren't ready to purchase at that first ad, but now they have the money, or now they want to do it, or it was a birthday or something, And when you have consistency going, you're training the system, you're training your ad account. All the data is stored in your ad account. So it optimizes on that data. There's outside factors that affect your results on a daily basis. It could be the elections, economy, whatever's going on in the world at the time, holidays. So when you keep feeding your ad account all of that data, and it keeps optimizing on all those signals, it'll keep learning. And the more data you have, the better you're going to do later down the road. If you go and stop, guess what? As soon as you stop, 7 days later, all of that data is forgotten on that specific campaign, at least on Meta, on a specific campaign. So after 7 days, if you don't turn it back on, all those learnings are gone. Now you're back to square one. So now it has to relearn all over again. So again, it's an auction, and you want the system to bid on that person who's most likely to give you the result that you're looking for. And to do so, it's better to have $10 going on a day than $300 for a week and then turn it off for 3 months.
That makes sense.
It's consistency, like anything else. Like exercising, you're not gonna get ripped overnight. You gotta go to the gym every day, and eventually you'll get there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it, like with the ads, so they're learning who to present the ad to make sure that it's engaging. Right. And
absolutely,
you're obviously going to be learning the same thing in that.
Yes,
that makes perfect. And once again, granted, I can get on a bicycle and ride one without too much of an effort, but the first couple of pedal strokes are going to be a little awkward because I haven't done it in a while.
Exactly. And there's so much information out there now that, again, if you're a small business or you're doing it for your personal brand, you could just look up a few YouTube videos or read a couple blogs. I'm sure you'll see TikTok videos pop on your feed or something. Just start with the basics. Just flip a couple switches, see what happens. E-commerce, that's a whole different animal, especially nowadays. It's expensive. It's hard. I tell people, I'm like, listen, I'm not here to crush anyone's dreams, but I really hope you're doing before you launch that whole store and ads. And if you don't, I hope you're like me and become obsessed with it so you can figure it out.
Awesome.
Because it's not, it's not 2010 anymore.
It's not 2010 anymore.
Well, that was the golden era of Facebook ads. I mean, there was no competition.
Yep.
They were so cheap. I mean, if I give you some of the numbers from back then, people are shocked when I tell them. It's like, you should throw like a few bucks a day and then make like $3,000 back doing nothing because there was no competition.
Sure.
There was plenty of inventory. Now, costs go up year over year over year. And that's what Meta keeps acquiring new companies or, started Threads so they can have more ad placements now. So now we have more ad inventory to keep those costs as level as we can, because it gets to a point where your cost per acquisition is so high that if your average order value there, your lifetime value is not there, and your back end sequences and selling and all that is not there, you're never going to make it.
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand, exactly.
Absolutely love it. I have a big personal one for you that I found very interesting. You're fluent in both Spanish and Italian, if I read correctly.
Yes.
First off, I'll ask, how'd that happen? There's some intentional with that. And then the other thing is, how has that helped through business? It's an interesting thing. I've got to think that's been a help.
It's helpful. Yeah, it helps because I'll launch ads in Spanish, right? So
amazing.
Italian, not so much, because Italian doesn't really, there's only one country in the world that speaks Italian. So
sure.
My dad's actually Italian. I'm Italian. So, and I grew up in Venezuela. My mom's from Venezuela. So I grew up in my house. I grew up both places. I grew up speaking both. I went to school in both. And then I moved to the States when I was 13, and that's when I learned English. So, but yeah, so that's just, it's there in my head since I was a kid, so it's pretty lucky. It's lucky. I tell you what, Italian's useless though. There's only one place in the world that speaks Italian.
Right. It is a small subset.
It sounds pretty, but it's useless unless you're speaking,
right.
You're over there, you're speaking to family and friends.
Right. Unless you're helping pay-per-click with Ferrari, Ducati, or Fiat or something. It doesn't matter. They don't advertise, man. They don't need to. No.
Think about it.
They've done enough with their brand.
They've done enough. Yeah, I think Ducati does, but Lamborghini for sure doesn't, and Ferrari, unless it's like, F1 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
They just don't need to. That all being said, I really appreciate you coming on today. Especially we did this kind of short notice, and we were connected via a mutual friend of ours, Elisa B. Bennett.
Yes.
This has been absolutely awesome. I know I have learned a ton. I'm pretty sure everyone in the audience has also. I really appreciate it.
I hope so. Yeah. And thank you again for having me. And anytime you want to have me on, just let me know.
Wonderful.
And I'll be more than happy to jump on.
Wonderful. For everyone out there, once again, this to me is a great base and a great starting point to learn a lot of things. Go out there, do some research, and go out there and do some great things. That being said, do me a favor, take care of yourself, and if you can, take care of someone else too. I will see you soon. Creating engaging content can feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. That's why I'm excited to share our Stomping Podcasting newsletter. You'll get actionable insights and expert tips straight to your inbox. These are to help you maximize your video marketing and podcasting return on investment. Head over to the show notes and click the link to subscribe to our free newsletter. Don't miss out on this opportunity to become a video marketing and podcasting pro.